Now that we have some basic information about drawings, how they work, and where the information comes from, let's start playing around by creating a new drawing. I want to start by opening up the machined part design. Now with this file open, there are two different ways that we can create a new drawing. The first is to go up to New, and you'll notice that we have a Make Drawing from Part or Assembly. This will take the current open and active file, the one that you're currently looking at and working on, and it'll start by creating a drawing. Because I don't have a standard template set, it's going to allow us to select a template we want to use. Drawing millimeter is the only one I have, so I'm going to say OK. Now once we say OK, it brings us in and it automatically opens up the view palette. I'm going to select on the screen, and I'm going to escape out of this and say Don't Save. The next thing I want to do is I want to go up to New, and inside of New, I'm going to select Drawing Template, say OK. Now when we do it this way, you'll notice it looks a little bit different. Instead of having the view palette automatically open up, you'll notice on the left-hand side, it brings up this model view. It allows us to select one of the open documents, or we can browse for a specific document. So either way you create it, you come into the drawing from a template you select, and you can start by creating a very basic drawing without having to do much work. Now, if you decide that you want to use the Insert into Assembly option, one thing that you want to do is you want to select the file and use this right arrow. Now, once you go to Next, you have choices to select configuration in the file. You'll notice that we can automatically create multiple views. For instance, if I want the standard front, right, and top, you notice that we can create multiple views like an isometric in here. We can go under Import Options and select to import annotations. Anything that we've created and marked for drawing inside of our part file, we can have it brought in automatically. We can modify the display state if we want to show shaded with edges for all of them. We can modify the sheet scale to be custom, dimension types, quality threads, and we can also save the views as. Now, one thing that I do want to do is I want to come back up here. I'm going to take off the ISO and I'm going to use the 3 standard views. And you'll notice that under More Views, that trimetric is automatically selected. So you'll notice that we have 4 views previewed on the screen. If I deselect that, we'll get the standard 3 views. Then if I select ISO, I get 4. From here, we can say OK, and we've automatically created those 4 views. Our title block is populated, and you'll notice that under drawing number, it now says Machined Part Design because it was linked to a custom property. Now, I'm going to go ahead and start a new sheet. Now, it says the sheet format could not be located because we don't have a default template. But I'm going to come in here, I'm going to select A4 and say OK. Now, in this sheet, I'm going to go over to the right-hand side into my view palette, use my drop down, and you notice that Machine Part Design is in here because it is an open document. You could also select the 3-dot button here and navigate to any file that you want to use. Once we select this, you notice that we also have the Import Annotations options, and Auto Start Projected View is selected by default. You'll also notice in here we have top, front, right, and isometric view that show a check mark on them. That's telling me that they're already included in a sheet in this file. So let's say that we wanted to use the bottom view. If I double click on it, nothing really happens, but if I hold down the left mouse button and drag it, I can place it on the screen. Now, because I have Auto Start Projected View, you'll notice that it automatically allows me to start projecting a view, whether it's isometric or whether it's a side view or top view. But you'll notice that before we do that on the left-hand side, we can modify parameters of the parent view, but after we select a click, then we're modifying them of the drag view. So if I hit Escape, it's going to place that single view. Let's go back to the view palette, and let's drag a trimetric view. And before we place it, while it's still floating around, we can modify its parameters. So you notice that here we can modify its view, we can modify its scale if we need to make it smaller or bigger, and we can say OK. Now there are a few more things I want to talk about when I'm talking about creating a new drawing. Now that we've taken a look at creating a new file and how we can auto-populate some of these views, we can move on and start creating our own views.